Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. How are you today? Ready for some stories from Ask a Lawyer? Let's go to the first one, about kind-hearted OP, who was helping her cousin and his child financially, but then she heard something her cousin was saying behind closed doors. Listen to the story to find out what OP heard, and of course to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 49 female, have a big family on my mother's side. My mother has 14 siblings, 3 remaining, and I have almost 30 cousins. Well, my mother's family is a very complicated family, but I won't talk about that. I have a cousin Fred, 35 male, whom my family went no contact with him. Only a few and his mother are talking to him. The reason why this happened was years ago he got someone pregnant and got married to her. They were married 3 years and got divorced. It's a messy divorce. My niece is staying with her mother. Well, it's much better. Fred loved his daughter very much. That time he quit his job, which was far away from us, in order to see his daughter, would give her anything and play with her. That was before. He met a woman, Kara, 45 female, and she's a teacher. They got into a relationship, but my family weren't happy with this, because it seems like Kara was being a sugar mommy to Fred. Fred is jobless ever since he left his job for his daughter, and Kara is giving him money most of the time. Ever since he met Kara, he seems to abandon his responsibilities as a father to his daughter. And then later, he announced that he and Kara are getting married. My family was furious for this, that they did not show up to his wedding. They didn't like Kara at all. She was the reason why Fred and his sister got into a messy fight, which led him to raise his hand on her. Some of our acquaintances told us that Kara had been bad-mouthing our family. Fred's ex-wife is on good terms with us, so when she talked about the wedding, she asked us not to bring her daughter to Fred. And he's not making an effort to see her anymore, nor is he paying for child support. And if she finds out we went against her wish, she won't bring her daughter to us anymore. We agreed. Kara soon gave birth and had a baby girl, Kimmy, who's a year old now. None of our family went to see her, not even once, except for Fred's mother and some. I also went to see her and only had a few conversations with them. Kimmy gets easily sick often. Fred is still jobless because he gets fired every time he has one. Kara is a teacher, but Kimmy's hospital fees are pretty much bigger than Kara's allowance. So I offered to pay. After all, she's my niece. My husband had been supporting me for this. I was invited to their house for dinner, and some friends were invited as well. We were talking at the table, and I excused myself to go to the bathroom. When I got out, a guy I know was outside the bathroom and told me to follow him. Followed him, and we were standing near a wall. And I can hear Fred talking, saying how I'm like a credit card to them and how naive and stupid I can be, and my mother was right that I'm weak-minded. I was hurt. That was my insecurities, and I have always been picked on for that. I was on the verge of tears, and I went out and told him that I wouldn't be paying for Kimmy's hospital fees in the future. Fred and Kara tried to reason, but I didn't give them a chance. Ever since then, I refused to talk to them. Am I the a-hole? Looks like the credit card had an expiration date. They have no one to blame but their own selves. I feel bad for the child. However, people will not grow up to responsibilities if others always enable them. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Crystal Queen 3000 says, "Not the a-hole. You overheard him literally admitting that he's using you and has no respect. Cut him off and cut him out of your life." One Condition says, "Not the a-hole. Wow, you offered to pay for their child and he called you a credit card? Nope. Cut them off." The Rest for the Wicked says, "Not the a-hole, and I hate to be that guy, but is Kimmy even really as sick as they claim? I wouldn't be surprised if they were just milking you for their own gain, unless you were paying the hospital directly." I'm 26 female, and ever since I met my sister-in-law, 44 female, 8 years ago, she has done everything in her power to be my decision maker. She treats me as if I'm incapable of doing anything on my own without her guidance, which is realistically just her telling me what I am and am not doing, because she knows best. I went no contact for 2 years because I couldn't handle her anymore. My husband and I moved an hour away and started over without her influence. We didn't want her knowing where we lived. We changed our numbers, everything. Well, as luck would have it, she just got a job at my company after not working at all her entire life. She had 0 qualifications, but used me as a reference. My mother-in-law told her where I worked, so they gave her the position. Within 2 weeks of her being there, I quit. At first it started small, where she would just corner me and not shut up so I could do my job. So my efficiency was dropping. After a few days, though, it turned into her once again trying to control my life, speaking to management on my behalf, trying to get me into a position I don't want because it's a pay raise, and I should be thankful that I have her doing these things for me. Management hangs on her every word. The tip of the iceberg was last Wednesday. There was a meeting we had to attend, and she, in front of 40-plus people, announced that my mental health is declining, and she was glad she was back in my life to pick up the pieces. This was brought up due to my dropping efficiency, which was questioned by management. So she made it into a mental health issue versus the real problem, which is that she never leaves me alone. I argued it and told her I was perfectly fine and that she just needs to leave me alone so I can work, and all that did was cause her to go into her manipulative woe is me BS in front of my boss, who later confronted me on hostile work environment, claiming that my sister-in-law just cares about my well-being. So I quit. Told him that since he couldn't stop revolving me into her BS, I was done. Yesterday, my in-laws had a barbecue with the entire family. Sister-in-law was supposed to work and not be there. Turns out, she called out, so she shows up. She starts cornering me about why I quit when we were all sat down at the table. She wouldn't drop it and continued to push. Finally, I snapped and said, "You're the ducking reason why I quit my job, because you once again tried to control my damn life and made out to my entire leadership team that I was mentally ill and wasn't capable of doing anything without you. I went no contact for a ducking reason. Yet here you are, destroying my life once again." The family is mixed. Some of them ran to her side since she was now crying and doing her pity me. I was just trying to help BS, and now think I'm a crazy a-hole. The other half have seen her patterns and stand with me. But now I feel like an a-hole for my blow-up because she makes me feel like I'm wrong defending myself. Am I the a-hole? She sounds like a nightmare. She has no right to bring up OP's mental health, and it's unfair that she got a job using OP as a reference. That being said, if this is the first time OP has properly articulated her problem with her to others, as well as her, I can see why some may be on her side. OP needs to make sure to communicate her side of the story as well, because from what OP said, she seems incredibly manipulative and may twist the situation. And now let's see the community's opinion. Not the a-hole OP, but your sister-in-law is a narcissistic and manipulative a-hole. She's projecting her insecurities onto you and trying to act like she's helping you to make herself feel like she has a purpose. This is enough to drive someone crazy, to be honest. Oh, and why is your boss taking advice from a lady he just hired less than a month ago? Seems like she's got everyone wrapped around her fingers. Oofy says, "Can you get a restraining order? This is madness. I would want to make sure any future boss knows exactly what she's like and not to let her anywhere near you. You are absolutely not the a-hole." After I had my first child, I had postpartum depression. I had a hard time getting motivated to do anything. I was just a ball of emotions and tears. My boyfriend was 25 at the time, and he couldn't handle it, so he left. His mom, Linda, took me in. She took over taking care of my son, and she helped me get therapy. She paid for the formula when I went on medication for my treatment and I couldn't breastfeed. She quite literally held me while I cried, feeling useless as a mother and as a woman. She was more of a mother to me than I had ever known before. It took a while, but I balanced out. I got back to watching my child. When I went back to work, my mom said that she would watch my son so he didn't have to go to daycare and cost me all the money I earned. She knew her son was not paying child support. She told me to go after him for it, so I did. Getting it made my life easier, and I asked her if she wanted me to move out. She said nope. When my son was 6, 3 years ago, I started talking to my now husband. He worked out at the gym where I went to get rid of all the weight I put on. He had seen me there for years and had nodded and said hi, but never approached me before. He told me that he was really impressed by my commitment to my health, and he asked me out. I almost said no. I had only ever been with one guy, and that was before the stretch marks and stuff. Linda told me to go for it. So, long story short, I'm now married to a pretty great guy. I'm working, and Linda lives in our guest suite and takes care of my son before and after school. She has even met a gentleman and has spent a few evenings out of the house. Because of my relationship with her, I'm still part of her family. So several of them were invited to my wedding, and they all called my husband an upgrade from my ex. So last Sunday, my ex was bringing my son back from his time with him, and he asked me if I ever thought about what our life would be like if I hadn't gotten depressed. I snorted and said no. I never thought of him as anything other than a sperm donor. He said that his family had done a lot for me and that I should be grateful. I said that I was grateful to them. I said that all of them that were still in my life considered my husband an upgrade from him. He got all butthurt that I said that and left. He called his mom and complained about what I said. Her and I talked yesterday, and she said that even though it was true, it was hurtful, and that I shouldn't have said it. She seemed sad, and I feel like crap for disappointing her. I apologized to her, and I called my ex and apologized to him. Sincerely. He called me an a-hole for turning his family against him. I guess he called other family members, and they all said he wasn't as good for me as my husband. And a few were less complimentary than that. So now I feel like crap for starting drama I could have avoided by keeping my big mouth shut. But it was so shocking to hear him ask about us when he left me without looking back. Well, in my opinion, OP didn't start the drama. He did by asking a rather stupid question. Maybe OP shouldn't have mentioned the upgrade, but OP is only human, and he was an idiot. OP apologized to his mom, and even she knew what OP said was true, and so do other family members. He can only blame himself for running around complaining about what OP said. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Kalam says, not the a-hole. Yes, you could have done better, but you apologize sincerely, and that's all one can do in retrospect. Hopefully Linda will forgive you. Your ex, however, F him, and his, what if you didn't get a very normal illness caused by carrying and delivering my child? Like, seriously, F that guy. You didn't turn his family against him. He did that to himself by being a massive a-hole. Sloth Lord McMeerkat says, oof, this is tough. I'm going with the not the a-hole, only because of how he left you, and the fact that you immediately addressed it with her and did your part to make amends on all levels. You haven't turned anyone against him. His actions have. As for his musings about what life would have been like, it sounds like he's whitewashing his actions and wondering if your success could have been his. It's awesome to read how close you and Linda still are, and that you've kept such a special place for her in your life. Treeflower77 says, everyone sucks here for how the argument went, but I'll give you a slight not the a-hole in the end, because you reached out afterwards to sincerely apologize. As harsh as you weren't exactly screaming about how awesome your new husband is to the wind. Your ex blew open your conversation by phoning in all of the other family members, and now he's mad that everyone else said the exact same thing you did. Sure, you didn't have to go low revealing the upgrade comment, but it's also his own fault for being such a deadbeat. My 60-plus female, daughter, female 33, and her husband, male 39, have been married for almost 9 years and were together for 5 years before that. We had weekly Sunday night dinners together and took family vacations. He liked us, and we loved him. A month after their wedding, they moved over 700 miles away, and we were limited to infrequent holiday visits when my husband and I would have Monday off from work. When my daughter was pregnant with her first child, I hated that I had to miss helping her through everything, because my son-in-law didn't know how to handle my daughter being less than on top of her game, because she ran their household. I was with them for the birth, and my husband drove in to help them move into their new house. We were happy to be there for their first step into this new chapter of their life. Before we left, I wrote my son-in-law a note with a plea to help my daughter more, and some tips for a new father. My daughter confided that he was less than pleased that I didn't think he could figure things out on his own without my help. Years passed, and they finally moved back to our home state, where day trips to visit were possible. Our second grandchild was born, and son-in-law decided to be a stay-at-home dad. My daughter was working a menial tech support job with as much overtime as she could handle, because he'd been laid off and refused to consider a profession outside of what he'd been doing for the last 20 years to support their family. We came to realize that his definition of stay-at-home dad meant putting the oldest on the school bus, putting the toddler in a high chair, and aiming it at the TV, while he went back to sleep or played computer games until my daughter came home to take over. No housework was done, and more than once they fought because he thought his wife should be doing it. She did not agree. When I came to babysit one weekend, I wanted to help her get out from under the mountain of housework that wasn't being done while she was working, and found bank statements. They've never had a joint account. The little bit that my son-in-law was making from a side gig was being spent at the liquor store, and based on the timestamps of the charges, he was leaving at least one kid alone to get his fix. I worried about my daughter and the safety of my grandchildren, but I knew better now than confronting my son-in-law directly. Instead, I contacted his parents and told them what I'd learned and asked for help in getting their son to straighten up. Rather than help me, they called their son and inflamed our conversation. That night, my daughter called me and asked how dare I go through their mail, contact her in-laws, and accuse her husband of being an alcoholic and neglectful parent. I tried to point out that she doesn't know what goes on at their house while she's working so many hours, which didn't help. Now she barely talks to me when we used to have daily phone conversations. I feel I was justified. Was I the a-hole? Country Bumpkin 1969 says, I know you meant well, but you're the a-hole. You have no business reading their mail and contacting his, a grown man's, parents. You didn't even talk to your daughter first. It appears he might be a bad husband with a drinking problem, but you really should have brought that up to your daughter. You offer her a shoulder and helping hand if she asks. Right now you apologize to her, tell her you're available if needed, and step back. Suitable Cod 1381 says, I see your point, and I know you mean well, but you've gone about this in the worst way possible. Everyone sucks here, but way more on son-in-law than you. It's clear you want to help here, but you need to talk to your daughter and ask her how you can help, rather than going through other family members. Impossible Pause 3788 says, you know that neglect is happening and that your daughter is too overwhelmed to help them. We can guess that she probably won't leave her husband and that she won't listen to you. You need to get the children out of there, or at least support them as much as possible. They're all that matters right now, not the a-hole. Update. I took the many "you're the a-hole" votes to heart and called my daughter Abby. I apologized for stepping over previously unknown boundaries, and from that point on, I would wait for her to ask me for help, then try to step in unsolicited. Things were still chilly, but warming from her, but her husband refused to speak to me, much less occupy the same room. I didn't try to change his mind. I just wanted to be in a position to help my daughter and grandsons. As overworked and distracted as she was, those boys are Abby's life, and she'd lay her life down before letting them be hurt. I was given permission to have the boys for a weekend to give the grown-ups some alone adult time. The rest I've heard from Abby. She decided to treat them to dinner out since she had some unexpected overtime pay and wanted to eat something that didn't come out of the freezer. While at the restaurant, in the bar waiting for a table, he immediately started drinking. He didn't stop until she mentioned that she didn't have the money for a binge, just a decent dinner. He didn't like that and sulked while Abby tried to make the most of their free night. After leaving, he asked why she was in a mood. Floodgates opened, and she told him every grievance and frustration she'd had since the baby had been born almost 3 years ago. For the second time in a month, he told her, if you're so ducking unhappy, just leave. Get the duck out. The first time he said that, she just drove until it was bedtime for the boys. This time, she packed a week's worth of clothes and came here, telling me and her father everything. This isn't the first time they've had to take a break, but she says she's not going back this time. School's out for the summer, and her father and I are happy to watch the boys for her while she's commuting to work. But she's considering quitting that job to get something closer to here. Her soon-to-be ex has only come out of his fog to request time with the boys once. He's having to move in with his parents, as Abby told him that she flat out refuses to pay more rent for a place she hated and never wanted to live in the first place. He and his parents will have the boys for 3 weeks this summer when everyone's plans get finalized. They're heading toward divorce, and I'm not sad over it now. Even Abby says that the man she's separating from isn't the man she married. Only place to go from here is onward and upward. Fingers crossed.